most things are transferable, whether it's like safety or group setup or headspace or paddling skills. And
Yeah.
so I find it really annoying when, and we don't have that again in Europe, but like when you ask someone's like, or someone comes up to you and I'm a class 4 boater.
Right.
And I'm like, well, who are you?
Yeah.
Like, are you so sure you're class 4 boater? Because I would never say that. I would never say I'm a class 5 boater. I have days I'm a class 2 boater and I don't want to run anything harder than class 2 because I'm scared or I'm not in shape or I'm injured. And I think just having this sort of confidence to say which class of kayaker you are makes you inherently someone I don't want to paddle with. It's
Yeah.
like someone comes to me, oh yeah, can I come with you? I'm a class 4 boater. I'm gonna be like, sorry, no, we're full.
Yeah.
And if someone's like, oh, I like to do that river, it looks really beautiful, and I've paddled this before, I think I could, but I don't know the group, would it be okay? Then I'm most likely gonna say yes.
Right.
Um, and I think there is no levels or whatever, like I know people that run class 5 and I know people that run easy class 4 and they're way better kayakers because
Mm-hmm.
you can just go down class 5 and be sketchy, and it hurts for the people on shore to just watch you paddling because it's so ugly, or
Mm-hmm.
you can be the smoothest class 3 easy class 4 paddler and that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think there is no level, there is no comparison. Everyone's gonna swim, everyone's gonna crash, whether you're just getting started or you've paddled for your entire life. And at some point, that's what it's cool about kayaking, is that it's always changing. And sometimes it really sucks when you're just scared on class 3. But like last fall, I was talking to my friend about it, and like last fall I was scared on class 3, and
Mm-hmm.
I really had to work on this. And then it's funny because people think that because you running harder stuff, sometimes you don't have the same struggle, but it's the exact same patterns and the exact same struggles, which is cool.
Yeah.
It'd be
Yeah.
boring otherwise, it'd be too easy.
Yeah. I know you've been doing some stuff in Squamish lately. What what have you been up to? That was like pretty out there.
Yeah. It might not have been my smartest idea.
Okay.
Um, I was in Squamish. Everyone's in Squamish is telling about how they're gonna go do missions with you,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone is in Squamish. I think it's because it's such a cool place. They
Yeah.
have the cool thing syndrome. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, sure, we'll do this. And next thing you know, the person is committed to go do Dipper and run local rivers with you next weekend. You're just, hey, you want to go paddling? And like, sorry, I went on a surf trip in
Right.
Olympic Peninsula or whatever. Or sorry, we went biking. And so the Squamish syndrome is whenever there's something better or cooler, people ditch you.
Okay.
You know, and it's fine, but sometimes you're like, but. And so I was like, okay, well, I know I'm gonna get ditched. I know people are gonna say yes, and then no one will come with me because it's not the best ideas I've had. And so I decided I would do the Pitch River. At first, I was looking at the Upper Hilaho, but then it was a savage bushwalk, and it was gonna be really long. And then I looked at the pit, and it was gonna be equally as savage, but I thought it was cooler.
Yeah.
Um, so I went to do that, but the approach,
Has anybody done it before?
I not sure. I don't think so.
Mhm.
It's the 3-day approach is pretty not
3 day.
appealing
Okay.
for people. So I hiked to Garibaldi Lake with my kayak, but there were some bear feeding thing.
Okay.
So the short 9-kilometer way was closed. So I hiked 17 kilometers from the Chikimus to the lake, crossed the lake, and slept in a glacier hut.
Yeah.
So that was a long day. And then the next day I went up, crossed part of the glacier with my kayak and crampons. And I was convinced that I would be able to stay on the high side. And then, of course, it snowed on me for the 2 days. And so the boulders with snow get really slippery when
Yeah.
you walk on it. I'm like, okay, well, I've got this, I've got this. And I took a fall, and I was like holding onto my boat, kind of tumbling down, and then I had to let my boat go because I didn't want to take a bigger fall than I had already taken. And just like stopped. Wear your helmets on portages.
Yeah.
It's probably more important than for the kayaking parts, I would guess.
Right.
And then I stopped, and I had lost so much elevation just by falling with my boat, and I didn't want to fall into the crevasse under the glacier because all the sides and that part was like a big crevasse that was going, and I was like, oh. So I stayed low, and then eventually I had to navigate on the ice. I had crampons and everything, and I mean I was ready for that, but I was kind of hoping that I wouldn't have to do that. So I was not really proud. Just remembering like all the stories growing up in the mountains and
In the Alps, about
in
staying
the
off
Alps,
the
and
ice.
I just always I know this is not good. This is not ideal. Made it down somehow because the other I climb up a mountain and you think, oh sweet, I'm at the top. You have to go down to the river on the other side.
Right.
Got to the river. There was no water.
Right.
That's what happens when you try to run a river from the source and it's been snowing on you, so it's really cold, so there is no water. And then I hike down, and eventually there is water, and the first canyon is unrunnable. There's a waterfall landing on rocks. Maybe I could rappel down, but then I don't know. So I'm like, wait, I need to portage that whole gorge. And I've had a long day, and I'm like, okay, start portaging. And maybe it took me like 2 hours to do 600 meters. So I slept on the portage whenever it was getting dark.
How many days in is this at this point?
That's my second day.
Okay.
And I had bear spray. The morning where I got dropped off, my friend Krista kind of explained me how it works because I had no clue how it works. And I'm hiking, and there is this bear trail. Like I see bear poop, and it's just like more
Grizzly
open.
bears.
I'd like to think they're the little blacky ones.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I've only seen a big black bear on that trip,
Okay.
which I'm happy about.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I'll take the bear spray. I mean, if I have it, I should probably carry it.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, it gets tangled in some branches because BC bushwalking is not easy to just move in.
Yeah.
And I just hear, psh,
oh no.
and I know instantly. I'm just like, I stop breathing, I close my eyes, I try to make like a step or two, and I need to breathe and open my eyes, and next thing you know, it burns.
Oh no.
So I had this stupid bear spray with me, but being French and not having much experience in those things, the only thing I've managed to spray was myself.
Right.
And then I was like, well, maybe the bear spray will get into the bag because I mean, I'm so bad with this thing that I just hope that I don't meet up with an angry bear.
Yeah.
And the next day I portaged for most of the day, got back to the river, and it was low. But luckily, those rocks, they have some sort of algae on them. They're very slippery. So it was super, super manky, but you're still like kind of pinball over the rocks. And I think I did some honest East Coast kayaking. They're just bouncing off rocks for
Right.
a couple kilometers. And I only did like 10 kilometers that day. And I had like almost 40 to go to the lake. And then I had another 35 to the bridge where
Right.
where it was my pickup point. And there was one cool canyon. The rest was all manky. I think maybe it goes better with more water, but it's hard to know. There's no gauge. There's no one had been in there. I saw a bear.
Okay.
He wasn't
Close.
scared.
Okay.
Yeah, but I was in my kayak.
Right.
I was
Not
trying
too-
to make noise and just looking at me, just doesn't care, doesn't move. I went to the other side of the river, scraping on more rocks, trying to not disturb him. Definitely did not disturb him. He just didn't move.
Right.
Looked and was like, wow, like pink kayak, not even scared. And paddle as hard as I could because I was being slow at this point. I had plenty of food, but I was just like trying to somehow see if I could actually make more than 10 kilometers a day, because if not, it would have taken triple the amount of time that I had planned.
Yeah. How many days were you hoping to do this in?
4 or 5.
You had enough food for 4 or 5
I
days.
had, yeah, because I was so tired on day 2, I didn't eat dinner, so I had enough food for 5.
Right.
And then I reached this flatter part, and there's some people and
Huh?
hot dogs, and I'm like, wow, how did you guys get? And they're like, you want a sandwich? I'm like, no thanks. And I'm trying to be polite. I'm like, how did you guys get there? Could you give me a ride to Vancouver? Because I was at this point, I was like tired, and I'm like, oh, maybe I can skip the flat water.
Yeah. So this is at the end of the river. You reached
No,
that.
that's at the end of like, it's getting flat,
Yeah.
but still like at least a good 20 kilometer upstream of the, or maybe not, maybe 15, but it's still way as up from the lake.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh no, you can't drive here. Well, how did you get here? Like helicopter. So
Okay.
they're like those people from Vancouver that just took a helicopter to go picnic at the hot pools. And then I was like,
Okay.
actually, I will take a sandwich. So they made me a sandwich, and I paddled down, and I'm tired, and I see this jet boat, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't know those things could go up the river like this. Nice boat, and I'm being like a little bit outgoing, and I scream at those guys. I'm like, hey, if you see me struggling on the lake, pick me up, please. and the guy is like, oh, where are you coming from? And I'm like, Whistler. He's like, what? And I'm like, Whistler. And then he wanted to know how it was possible. So he's like, stop at the mouth of the lake. I'll give you a ride. And he's just screaming this. It's like 4 kilometers. It's 7. But in a jet boat, it goes faster.
Yeah.
And so I did the paddle out. And at the lake, there's no one. And I'm just waiting. And I'm like, maybe I should just start paddling the lake. But maybe I'll get a ride. And I think 30 or 40 minutes later, they showed up and they gave me a ride, and it took me like 20 minutes to go across the lake on a jet boat
Nice.
instead of like a full day with headwinds, and
Right.
I had a wet sleeping bag.
What a trip. So that's an awesome trip you did solo. What what's your mindset during that trip? Are you fully enjoying a lot of those times? Like, do you get to the point when you're like paddling that manky stuff, or even on, obviously there were moments on the glacier that you didn't like, but
Yeah, I think if you go on expeditions, it's not gonna be all fluffy and nice
Mhm,
and easy, and you definitely have some moments where you're miserable
mhm,
because your boat is heavy, or you're tired, or your gear gets wet, or you're cold. And I mean, I'm not crazy. I don't really like being cold and
mhm,
tired and too scared, but it is just part of it, and it takes work to get to those places and to do those things. And I think if you're not willing to accept that, you shouldn't go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if you want it to be easy, you pick a parking lot to parking lot 1 hour section.
Yeah.
And even that, you can always have a swim and have to hike out, and it can be tricky.
Yeah.
But like, I think part of it is to embrace when it gets harder.
Yeah.
And I think if you're open to that, is where you have like funny things happening. You know, like people give you a sandwich, or
Yeah.
Danny gives you a boat ride, and
Yeah.
then you make a new friend,
Yeah.
which is funny.
You have those
I
lows, you
went
have those
fishing with
huge
Danny.
highs.
I went fishing with Danny this week.
Okay. And that was the guy who gave you the boat ride.
Yeah,
That's great. Your new friend.
came up
Awesome.
to Squamish and we went fishing with some
Nice.
other friends. It was
Awesome.
fun.
What would be a useful piece of whitewater equipment? Maybe that's not obvious, like whitewater wise, that you think is a good little tip, something you're enjoying using these days, that's bringing you value that you think would give anybody
A small
hearing
piece
this
of
seeing
gear.
stuff. Yeah, whitewater gear or a big piece of gear.
Something I use a lot is what did they call it for the rafting? Like a long sling with a binner
Okay.
that I often have around my waist.
Yeah,
I put
sometimes
it
they call
on.
that a flip line or
Yeah, it's like a
guide
flip
belt.
line, but I
Yeah.
don't do rafting, so I don't
Yep.
have to flip raft. I don't
Yeah.
think I know how to do it. I'm
When
not
you're
that.
kayaking, do you wear one of those under your skirt around your waist?
So I have one on top of my skirt if the
Mhm.
river doesn't have wood,
Mhm.
and if it's not like, and if it has wood, I wear it under the
Yeah.
skirt. But I wear it on top because sometimes I use it and I'm still in my boat, and I would throw it over a tree and clip my boat and do things like
If it's
this.
a
Or
tough place to get out.
or on portages, I use it a lot.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I
really
know that's something on our like rescue courses we
like
actually like
you
teach
can get
everybody.
stuck in it. Like it can be
Yeah.
a hazard and it can save you. So
Yeah, it's funny. It's come up a little bit in debate these days. Some people are like, "Oh, it's an entrapment issue," but what we think is that like any gear could be an entrapment issue if you don't wear it properly, right? So, like you're saying, on particular rivers, you might even take it off. But in general, I think if it's on really tight, right, it's not loosey goosey, then it's solid. So I know for myself, like, and you don't need to wear it around your waist, right? You could put it in your pocket and put the carabiner somewhere
yeah,
else, but it's
I
handy
feel
to
like
have right there. And as long as it's tight enough, and what we say is to like have a locking carabiner there and keep it locked, so you're
I
not
have I
flipping
have
the,
a square turn one, like
yeah,
a
a
turn.
quick lock, like auto
Yeah.
locker.
And
Cool.
then I think life jacket is hard because I have a lot of things in my life jacket already. I like to have my pin kit on me and not in my boat.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, if you have it in your boat, you don't have it accessible.
Yeah. So you have it spread out on your PFD. What about some expedition gear? Like for these multi-days, is there a little thing that you've been carrying lately or you discovered lately that you're like, oh, this is sweet?
Chocolate, always. No, but you're gonna have hard time, and you're gonna be miserable, and having enough food and having like something that makes you happy is really helpful. So
Yeah.
I bring chocolate on
What
trips,
kind?
all kinds.
Any kind. Nice.
Yeah, I love chocolate.
What's a trip you want to do that you've been thinking about?
Ooh, ooh. I think there's many trips I'd like to do. I'd like to combine mountaineering and kayaking trip. I think I'm gonna try to do that next year.
Cool. Where are
It's
you
a
thinking?
little bit most likely India
Okay.
or Nepal. It's a little bit complicated with alpinism permits
Right.
to get it, and I'd like to go to Pakistan
And paddle.
to paddle there, the
Cool.
Indus, but also there have so many other rivers that I think are great. So I would like to go to Pakistan at some point, but I don't know. There's so many so many cool stuff. And sometimes you look at like, those bigger trips, and you're in Squamish and you have the Pit River that's literally like there, it's like a 30-minute drive to the parking lot, and a great adventure right in your backyard. And I think sometimes maybe we're too focused on trying to go too far and do those like complex things, where you actually have trips that are right there, or that
Yeah.
are super cheap.
Cool.
So I'd like to do those too.
What's I know you already mentioned a few things, but is there another like incident or near miss that you've had with some good learning, some good takeaways that you think would be worth sharing that people could learn from as well?
Um, yeah, I've had my share of stupid calls and stupid decision. I think the worst one was I went on this river in India. I tried to combine I combined three rivers, the Tarab, the Zanskar, and the Indus. It was pretty juicy flows. And
This is the one where you made a video?
Red Bull made a video.
Okay.
Yeah, I traded my GoPro footage for a plane ticket.
Okay. And so they edited.
And then
We'll add the link to this in, in
yeah,
the notes for
Red
this.
Bull India started editing it, and then I was like, "You're not using this footage ever."
Okay.
And then we had meetings, and they told me I had to put my ego aside, and I was like, "Oh, but this is not about this. It's more like I never want my mom to see
Right.
this." Like I told my mom, like, "Mom, I messed up. Uh, I went for a siphon." Um, but I think seeing the images is just so much worse than hearing it and be like, I messed up, I went for a siphon, I had to self-rescue, but I'm good. Like
Yeah.
this is something, when you see the footage, I think is way harder. It's like my mom, she hates waterfall because I broke my nose on my first big waterfall, and then I looked so ugly, and she had to pick me up and then deal with like the surgery and things like this. And I think it just becomes way more real when you're there, and when you, or if you see it. Um, yeah, and I just did so many mistakes leading to that trip. Um, I decided I was gonna do a solo trip because I had spent the last 3 weeks in India. I was just like a little bit disappointed with the trip so far. So a little bit last minute, kind of planning the thing, getting a friend to ship my dry suit to India because Kerala is really warm, but the Himalaya is really cold. Next thing you know, my dry suit is stuck at customs because those stupid administration people in India, they just don't know what it is, so they
Mm-hmm.
just skip it or use dry suit
Right.
just to make sure. So I don't have a dry suit, and I'm like, well, I'm here. I don't know how long this is gonna take. So I'm like wearing neoprene pants and a dry top and some sort of like pants that's not really uh how do you, like, it's not waterproof. And then
Soft
I
shell.
and then I do everything. I do my research, but not super super well. Like I can't read blogs about people who've paddled the river. I Most of the time I just hate it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a few really good trip reports that I find really useful. Uh, the Oregon guys, they're really good at making good trip reports, and it's like a guidebook.
Mm.
And then you have the typical trip report, and it's basically an article about how awesome they are. And I just really don't like reading that
Yeah.
because it's poorly written, so it's not even fun to read, and it's inaccurate, and it's just people stroking their own egos. And I think a lot of the kayaking trip reports are like, we did that, and then it's so gnarly. So I tried not to read it. And then I went to the river. I was meeting up the driver and the guys at 5, but then the guy got too drunk, so he was passed out, and we couldn't wake him up. So we ended up leaving at 10:30, but then it was really hangover, so we had to do a lot of breaks on the road. And the first day I got to the river at 4:30 instead of like midday. Uh, and so I thought maybe I was like, starting late because of course I had like a fairly limited amount of food. That I had an extra day, but I was like, I should get going. It's a long river. It's a lot of kilometers. And I think maybe I was rushed, and then I didn't really pay too much attention to the elevation. So I stayed like a day or two, and then I went straight. And you have 2 mountain paths that are over 5,500 meters. So I got a little bit like dizzy, and I felt really sleepy, and I think I was a little bit weak from that, because I should have spent the time to just do the acclimatation, which I didn't do. A little bit like arrogant, like, oh, I'd be fine. I grew up in the Alps. Well,
Right.
I wasn't, like, just like everyone else. I won't be fine. Altitude will just like mess you up.
Yeah, 5,000 meters is high.
And then I think I just lost focus. I'm like, you're paddling by yourself, and it's a beautiful place, and I'm the kind of person that will just be like lying on the back of the boat looking at the clouds and looking at things, and I would just see like animals and be like so stoked and just not thinking about kayaking when I'm kayaking. And Nicole Mansfield, when I paddled with her, she's always like, hey, don't forget to go kayaking when you go kayaking. Because I get spaced out, and next thing you know, like, I'm just like spacing out, and there is a rapid they told me this section had like only easy rapids, and it looks way bigger than just class 2-3. And I look around, and there is 180 on the river left, or I'm boxed in, and then the ferry is really tricky, and I can't scout. And on the river right, same thing. I can't really get out, so I kind of start going, but I don't know where I'm going, so I'm slow, and my boat is really heavy because I'm soloing, so you have more weight, and I'm just not committed enough, and I'm not paddling strong enough, so I fully mess up my line and end up in that pocket, and all the water of that pocket is going under the rocks into a siphon. And so I know straight away that this is not good, and I see the water under me, and I'm like, oh my god, this is not good. And so I stabilize myself with my paddle. I jam my boat in between the rocks, and I'm like, okay, well, you're not in the siphon, you're pretty stable, maybe you can do something. So I open my skirt, I put my watershed on the rock, I jam it, and I do the same with my paddle. I jam it on the rock, and then I'm like, if you can get out on those rocks, you'll be fine. And I'm like, but I cannot afford to lose my boat because it has my food and my sleeping gear in it. So I have this sling with a carabiner that I always have in my life jacket. It's a circular sling, so I can make a harness out of it if I need to. And I clip it, and I try to clip my boat, but because I need to be putting pressure on the tail to not have the boat, like to have the boat stable, I'm too short, and I can't reach the front grab loop, the one that's super close to you. Like I'm literally missing like 3 or 4 centimeters to get it. And so in order to get it, I just need to move forward in my seat. So I move I slide forward in my seat, I clip it, and then when I do that, the boat slides from the rock where it was like holding pressure, and I don't have my skirt on, so I feel like I have a little bit of water starting to get inside the boat, and I know that there is no way I'm gonna be able to jump off the rock. I sort of tried to grab the rock, and I see that I wasn't gonna make it, so the only thing I could do at this point was to just get out fully of my boat. And when I got out of my boat, I kind of like stood on it and pushed my boat as far as I could inside the siphon, away from me. And then I got sucked down, and I was like, well, you're an idiot, and now there is nothing else you can do, and it's 50-50. And I think I was lucky that it was a big siphon, and that my boat went through and I went through, and it was really short. Like I think it was no more than 4 or 5 seconds full downtime. I could just like feel like hitting rocks on the top, and so I knew that maybe the flotation of my life jacket was bringing me back up, and that it might have pockets. So every time I would feel a rock, I would just push down again. Just like instead of trying to go up a lot of the time, if you have the option, just go as deep as you can. Like whether you're in a siphon or if you get stuck in a hole, just swim as far down as you can. The deeper, the better. Where your instinct is to go back up to get some air, but you probably want to do the opposite. And then I was kind of relieved when I saw the light again, and I could breathe. But I had to swim the whole next canyon, and I had to swim after my boat. And I was happy to have that thing clipped in already, because I didn't have to like deal with that. I could just like put my arms through the sling and just like swim and try to bring my loaded, full of water boat to shore. And then I don't really know how, but my paddle was floating by, and my boat was not even in the eddy fully, and my paddle floating by, and I'm like, oh, I need to go get my paddle.
That's amazing, though, that you got it.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I'm happy I got it, and that it would have been fine if it was stuck on the rocks.
Yeah.
But it would have been really bad if I didn't see it.
Did you have a breakdown?
No.
No.
Well, like that's kind of stupid, but you're like, I'm going alone. If I lose my paddle, it's probably bad enough that I don't need a breakdown. And I think, like, for me, the scenario was unacceptable. Like, the mindset I had before doing something like this alone is like, if something like this happens, it's game over. And I can't believe I did such a big mistake, and in such a stupid way. Like it was really dumb. I was literally not paying attention, not even looking. It's not that I was like not scouting rapids. It's just like I just fully spaced out.
Yeah.
And when I wanted to stop and scout, it was just too late.
Right.
Because I didn't do my research as much as I should have. I had a map that had the elevation lines all wrong. It took me 4 days to figure out, like, my map was not making any sense. And then my inReach wouldn't really show the elevation. And because you're so close to Kashmir in Ladakh, you're not supposed to have a satellite device.
Okay.
Like, satellite phones are forbidden. I'm not 100% sure about the inReach, but I'm pretty sure they're forbidden. And I was like, I'll use it anyway. And I was so convinced because the Indian administration is so inefficient. I'm like, they'll never find me. And then I met this mountain guide, and he's like, oh, they would find you. I went to court. They had all the conversation of me and my ex-girlfriend. I was like, oh.
Wow.
So then I was at the airport. Enrich was like super well eaten under all my things in my bags. You know, I was just like kind of sweating because I don't know how to lie that well.
Right.
Yeah, so that
Wow.
was stupid.
And so what can you take away from that or pass on?
You know, I think preparation. Probably going alone is not a good idea.
But I mean, you like going alone. You love it, right? Like you do solo trips.
I think I would not go alone if I have a really good crew.
Okay.
Like let's say if Boom or Ben was there, I would have definitely gone with them. Or if someone that I like would come with me, I would be happy. You know, if someone just wanted to come and I know that they're gonna be good on the river and a good person, I'd be probably more happy to.
But there's something about solo trips like you like, right? Like it's not like you have no choice. You're choosing to go.
No, I still, yeah, I think I still choose to go. I think it's a different mindset. I think I like it because you can't paddle the same way.
Yeah.
And you have less margin, and it forces you to maybe be more careful.
Yeah.
But maybe I like it because I need some alone time more than anything. And if I was hiking or biking, it would be the same. But since I like kayaking more, that works for me. I usually disagree on like the sort of like typical like paddling alone forces you to be in a flow state, blah blah blah. Because I do believe that you can reach those flow states at any time if you are putting in the work and you don't have to be alone, you know. Like if you analyze a rapid and you prepare for it and then you run it perfectly, you can have safety, you will reach the flow state. And I think for me, I'm most likely to reach it with safety and with people rather than alone, where you know the setup is more complicated and not ideal. But I think that is something that contributes to sort of like promoting solo paddling. And it's a very controversial question. Like, sure, you shouldn't be alone in theory, but like, I mean, like, there's a lot of things that you shouldn't do that you do because you want to do them.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things that are dangerous that you could do.
Well, that
people
comes
around.
back to like our society and how things are constructed. It's like rule number 1, never paddle alone. And I think it's really contextual. Like, well, if you have a work day and I mean, rule number 1, never go jogging alone. What if you break your leg and then you're wearing your a stupid t-shirt and a short and you're gonna be hypothermia and you're just gonna die in the dumbest way too. You know, it just works the same. But it's the way we've evolved in living in society where risk management has become like a priority, you know, like everyone's trying to control and limit risks, and then no one's even spent the time to define what risk is. What is risky? Is it like something consequential is necessarily risky, or is it like the probability that something bad is gonna happen, you know? And I think that I don't like those statements where people just they make a statement but they've never actually taken the time to define things and think about it. And I think if Alex Arnold is doing his free solo thing, is probably way less risky than me climbing with a rope and all the safety equipment, to be honest, because I'm a hazard on my feet.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
No, 100%. And, you know, and even though you put yourself in that situation, I also think that like the way you managed to get out of your boat and still have everything and still make it down the trip, it wasn't a good situation, but it's
No, it
also
was so bad.
but all your other skill and experience comes into that. And I think it's important that people understand that as well. Like it's cool to hear your background growing up, like since you were a kid and like then all your training to get to where you are now. Oh, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
there.
okay. Um, to give people a sense of what it takes, to get to where you can, you know, decide to paddle certain stuff. Which brings up, I guess, a last point. What do you think? Like, do you ever think about the way you're putting some of this stuff out there, like that video that you made, well, that Red Bull made of that trip? Do you ever worry about that it gives people who are like thinking about getting into this stuff the impression that wilderness travel is only like really dangerous or crazy and like they don't even want to go there? Like, do you ever worry um, about people not having that context and then getting like put off from getting into river running because they're like, oh, that's not for me. I can never do that. And yeah, and you obviously, I'm sure you put out a lot of stuff that shows more the other side of why you like wilderness stuff of like the camaraderie, all the stuff you've been talking about, right? The
Yeah.
alone time, the connecting with nature. I don't know. Is that something you think about?
Um, I think honestly we live in a complicated time. Uh, because people are not thinking enough. I've had people come to me and it's like, oh, I know you from Instagram. And I'm just like, know you. And they're not like when it's 10 years old kids, I'm like fine with it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, oh cool. But when it's like a 40-year-old dude, I'm like, no, you don't know me. Let me tell you why you don't know me. Because I am gonna post a photo, which is part of why I can afford to go kayaking, because I have sponsors and that's one of the requirements. I think if I didn't get anything out of it, I'm not sure whether or not I would do it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I would do it less. That's for sure, because it's taking a lot of time and
Yeah.
it's kind of annoying to be like, oh, okay, oh, I need to post something.
Right. Or
Sometimes,
would you be posting something different, like that you wanted to share?
yeah, I probably wouldn't post anything.
Yeah.
Probably go do something else. But
Mm-hmm.
um, what what has to be understand is like wherever you're gonna post a photo, not only you're gonna select that photo, you're gonna pick a photo, and then you're gonna caption it. And people take it for an absolute truth sometimes and a reality, and whether you decide to show the true or only put photos where you look good or whatever, it's more or less the reality, but it's only part of it and it's been selected, and it's just the image of yourself or the projection of yourself that you're willing to show. And I think as long as people don't understand that, it's really messed up, and I don't really know what to do, because I think that in that movie I managed to convince Red Bull to work with David Arnaud, which is a kayaker and he knows what he's doing and he's really good at storytelling. And then I trusted him to make sure that we do not promote solo kayaking, and that we show what happened in the most neutral way, and being like vulnerable and admitting that it was a big mistake. And I thought when it came out, like for me, it was hard to watch this footage. So I haven't watched that movie more than once the draft and maybe once the full movie.
Mm-hmm.
I would go out on screenings if it's being played. Um, but I thought we did a good job at showing that. And then you see how it gets received, and it's either, whoa, you're so hardcore and so strong, or this is unacceptable, you're glorifying risk and soloing and things like this. And I'm like, well, you're wrong and you're wrong, because it's none of these things. Like, it's not one or the other. It's so much more complex. And I think people need to step back from what they see, and not just consume the information, but also like make their own opinion about it. And that's crazy, because we're just talking about kayaking footage. Imagine for like things that are like actually important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it would be nice if to have a little bit more of an in between, and not necessarily like a mannequin vision of things where it's either good or bad. Like it's both. It's stupidity, and then you have to fight. Uh, but it's not courage, because you don't have any other choice. Like people, oh, you're so hardcore. Like, I would have never continued, and I'm like, you would have, because there is no other option. Of course, if I had the option to just like be teleported at my mom's house and have a cup of hot chocolate, I would have done that like instantly. Like, same with the jet boat. If I can get a ride in a warm jet boat with a free delicious tuna sandwich, rather than another miserable day of flat water paddling and a night in my wet sleeping bag under the snow, I'm in. Yeah. So
Cool.
I don't know. I think people need to make their own decision of with what they see, and make their own opinion and see. I mean, I think some people might want a solo, and for some people it's not something they're into, and for me, I think I just have, most of the time I don't really want to do it, and then a few times a year or on a few rivers I really like to be alone, but most of the time I'd rather be with good friends and bring a nice picnic.
Yeah. Cool. And I mean, I think I don't know. I feel lucky to have this conversation, and like, because this is kind of what gives a bit more depth to understanding some of those things. So, okay, last question to lighten things up,
Cool.
and we have to end there. What's your favorite expedition meal
Wow.
right now? Like, what do you, besides chocolate? Is there something you think, or just food wise?
As long as it's not dehydrated food, like, these are the worst.
What
But
could you take on these trips, like a multi-day kayaking trip that's not freeze-dried and dehydrated, that works for you?
if you can make fires and then you don't have to deal with gas consumption, lentils, rice, pasta, couscous is really good. I've been going on really heavy trips where you can have sausages, and then Joe Camper taught me a recipe. You cook your sausages and you buy those croissant thing, and then you put the croissant around. And so when you cook your sausage, it's a like a corn dog, but it's a croissant around
Right?
your sausages around. That's really good. I've been doing the same with marshmallow, chocolate, and then the croissant around. Really, really
So
good.
poisson dough, like
Yeah,
like
the one you buy in the US supermarket. I think you have it here too.
okay,
It's not
cool.
super high quality, but it's really nice to hang out by the fire and make cookies and croissant.
Awesome.
I don't know. I've cooked a squash inside a fire before in an expedition. That's really good. It's really heavy though.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I know Ben and Boomer, we try to bring vegetables, and it's kind of like glory if you can bust out a few vegetables on your last night. Like on the Pasqua, we busted out a mango for our
Nice.
last breakfast, and it's heavy and it doesn't make sense to carry, but at the same time, you're not at 1 extra kilo is not necessarily gonna make a huge
Yeah.
difference for something shorter than 6 days.
Yeah.
So
And so on those trips, you don't bring any freeze-dried stuff?
I had freeze dried on the pit.
Yeah.
Um, Mostly because I knew
You
it
couldn't
was
make
gonna
fires.
be long day,
Okay.
and sometimes, especially if you're alone, cooking is not that fun.
Yeah.
And you can just pour the warm water and then you put it in your sleeping bag for the 12 minutes.
Nice.
Yeah, because you have to wait 12 minutes and it's really warm and nice.
Awesome.
It just sucks
Nouria,
if it explodes because then
right.
you have chicken pasta all over you.
Disaster. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
That was
you're
awesome.
welcome.
Thank you.
Have a great
And
day.
you too. Have a good
Yeah,
good day in the West Coast.
yeah, the Callahan is in.
Awesome. You going paddling?
Yeah.
Nice.
See
Nice.
ya.